My name is Daniel Brooks, and until a few months ago, I would have described my life with one word: reliable. I was 37, worked as a data analyst for a logistics firm in Seattle, and believed in systems more than luck. Numbers made sense to me. Patterns made sense to me. If something was broken, there was always a cause, and if there was a cause, there was a fix. I liked that. I trusted that. I built my whole life around that idea. Emily used to tease me about it. "You don't feel things," she would say with that half-smile of hers. "You process them." She wasn't wrong. I liked routines. I liked clean spreadsheets, quiet mornings, and bills paid on time. I liked knowing where things stood. I liked coming home to the same warm light in the kitchen and hearing the same soft creak in the hallway near the stairs. Stability wasn't boring to me. It was proof that I had done something right. And I thought I had. We lived in a gray-blue house not far from the water, on a street where the air always smelled faintly like salt and rain. On clear evenings, the light off the bay turned everything silver. Emily loved that part of the house most. She said it made even bad days feel softer. Most mornings, I was up before 6. I would grind coffee beans in the kitchen while the sky outside still looked cold and unfinished. Emily usually came down 20 minutes later in one of my old sweatshirts, hair slightly messy, still half asleep. She would lean against the counter, arms folded, waiting for me to hand her a mug like it was part of some quiet ceremony we had invented together. That was the version of us I trusted. We had been married for 8 years. No children, by mutual decision. A good mortgage. Shared accounts. Weekend dinners with friends. Holidays split between her parents and mine. A normal life, which I had come to value more with age. There was no chaos in it, no drama. Just two people who had built something steady and lived inside it. Emily worked in marketing for a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. She was better with people than I would ever be. She could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 3 people laughing and one person offering her an opportunity. I admired that about her. She made movement look effortless. I handled the fixed parts of our life. She handled the fluid ones. It fit. On Fridays, I usually came home with takeout from the Thai place she liked on Harbor Avenue. Green curry for her, pad CEW for me. We'd eat in the living room with the windows cracked open, listening to the gulls and the low hum of traffic from the waterfront. Sometimes she would rest her feet in my lap while scrolling through her phone, and I would absently rub her ankle while half-watching whatever series we were in the middle of. There was comfort in that kind of repetition. Not the dead kind. The earned kind. My coworker Nate once told me I was lucky. We were standing near the office vending machines, both pretending the coffee was drinkable. "You've got that settled life," he said. "Job, house, wife. You act like nothing can touch you." I remember smiling at that. Maybe because, at the time, I believed it too. Not in an arrogant way. Just with the quiet confidence of someone who thought he had done the work already. I had chosen carefully. Built carefully. Protected carefully. I believed my marriage was strong for the same reason I believed a well-made model holds its shape. Good structure. Honest inputs. No hidden damage. If Emily came home late, I assumed work. If she seemed tired, I assumed stress. If she was distracted, I gave her space. Trust, to me, wasn't blindness. It was respect. That was the thing I was most proud of. I never imagined the person I trusted most would become the one variable I failed to measure. The first change was so small, I almost respected it for how easily it slipped past me. Emily started mentioning a new project manager at work, Jason Cole. At first, it was harmless background noise, the kind of office talk that fills space while dinner cools on the table. Jason wants the deck revised by Monday. Jason changed the timeline again. Jason thinks the client might expand the campaign. His name entered our house the same way rain starts in Seattle, lightly enough that you don't notice until the windows are already covered in it. I didn't think much about it. Emily's firm rotated leadership all the time, and I knew her job came with shifting priorities, late calls, and fragile people with inflated titles. Jason was just another name attached to another quarter of work. Then she started staying later. Not every night. That would have been obvious. It was scattered at first. A Tuesday, then a Thursday, Then the following Monday, she would text me around 6:30 with some variation of the same excuse. Still at the office. Last-minute revisions. Client panic. Don't wait up for dinner. The messages weren't strange by themselves. What felt strange was the rhythm. Too polished. Too ready. Like they had been written before the moment required them. I noticed she had started dressing differently too. Nothing dramatic. Just sharper. More deliberate. Emily had always been attractive in an effortless way. Cream sweaters, simple gold jewelry, hair tied back when she was busy. But now there was a new precision to everything. Silk blouses on weekdays when no one important was supposedly visiting. Darker lipstick. Perfume in the mornings, even on days she used to rush out with wet hair and a granola bar. One Wednesday, I watched her stand in front of the hallway mirror adjusting an earring I'd never seen before. Small silver drop earrings, clean and expensive-looking. She tilted her head, studying herself with a focus that felt private. "You look nice," I said. She smiled, but only for a second. Big presentation. Then she grabbed her phone off the console table before I could glance at the screen. That was new too. Emily had never been careless with her phone, but she had never guarded it either. Now it was always face down. Always within reach. If a message came in, she looked at it fast, almost reflexively, then turned the screen away as if the motion meant nothing. At night, it stopped charging on the kitchen counter and started living beside her on the nightstand, screen dark, sound off. I told myself not to be ridiculous. People got busy. Work changed. Marriages went through phases. I believed that. I wanted to believe that. So I kept choosing the explanation that preserved the life I already understood. But doubt doesn't arrive as a full argument. It starts as a small irritation, a grain under the skin. One afternoon at work, Nate leaned against the edge of my desk while I was cleaning a dataset. "You good?" he asked. I looked up. "Why?" He shrugged. "You've been distracted. I've been busy." Nate watched me for a second, then reached for one of the stress balls someone had left in the break area and tossed it from hand to hand. "You ever get that feeling something's off before you can prove it?" I gave him a flat look. "That sounds like something people say right before making bad decisions." He smirked, but it faded quickly. "Maybe. I'm just saying, don't ignore your own instincts because they don't come in spreadsheet form." I almost laughed at that. Almost. That night Emily came home after 9. Her hair smelled like perfume and cold air, not office air. Not printer heat, stale coffee, and recycled ventilation. She set her bag down quietly, like she was trying not to disturb something. "You ate?" she asked. "Yeah. Sorry. Long day." I looked at her while she opened the fridge. Black heels. Fitted coat. A softness in her face that didn't match exhaustion. "How'd the presentation go?" She paused for half a second. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. Long enough for me. "Fine," she said. "Just glad it's over." Then she kissed my cheek and turned away before I could see her expression clearly. I stood there in the kitchen, listening to the refrigerator hum and the faint sound of rain against the back windows. Nothing had happened yet. Not really. Nothing I could point to. Nothing I could name. But for the first time in 8 years, being in my own house felt like standing in the wrong version of it. The night everything collapsed didn't feel dramatic at first. It was a Thursday. Cold, damp, the kind of Seattle evening where the city feels quieter than usual. Emily texted around 6. "Running late again. Don't wait up." I stare at the message for a few seconds longer than necessary. Same tone. Same structure. Same calm distance. I typed back, "Okay," and left it at that. Instead of going straight home, I drove downtown. No plan. Just movement. I told myself I needed air, a break from screens and numbers, and the quiet tension I hadn't admitted out loud yet. I ended up parking near a narrow street lined with older buildings, the kind with dim signage and fogged windows. There was a jazz bar I had passed a dozen times but never entered. Soft amber light spilled out onto the sidewalk. A muted trumpet drifted through the door each time it opened. I went in without thinking. Inside, everything felt warm and contained. Low ceiling, dark wood, Small round tables packed close together. People leaning in toward each other, voices blending into the music. The air smelled like whiskey and citrus. I took a seat at the bar. "Whatever's easiest," I told the bartender. He nodded and poured something amber into a short glass. I wasn't there for the drink. I was there because it wasn't home. For a while, I let the music take over. The slow rhythm, the controlled improvisation. It reminded me of something I couldn't quite name. Maybe the illusion of order inside chaos. Then I saw her. It wasn't sudden. Not like in movies where everything stops. It was gradual. A movement in the reflection behind the bar. A familiar posture. The way someone tucks their hair behind their ear when they're listening. I turned slightly, just enough to see the back corner of the room. Emily was sitting at a small table near the wall. Across from her was a man I had never met, but I didn't need an introduction. Jason Cole. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, speaking in a low voice that made her smile. Not the polite smile she used with clients. Not the tired smile she gave me after long days. This one was softer. Intentional. There were 2 drinks between them. Not coffee. Not anything that belonged to a late meeting. I felt something shift inside me, but it wasn't explosive. It was precise. Like a piece clicking into place. I turned back to the bar before either of them could notice me. My hand rested on the glass, but I didn't drink. Think. That was the first clear thought. Don't react. Don't move too fast. I watched them through the mirror behind the bottles. A perfect angle. They didn't even know they were being observed. Jason said something that made her laugh, head tilting back slightly. His hand moved across the table, not touching hers, but close enough that the intention was obvious. She didn't pull away. She leaned in. There was no hesitation in her body language. No uncertainty. No guilt. Just familiarity. Time slowed in a way I had only ever experienced when debugging something critical. Every detail became sharper. Her posture. The way she held her glass. The timing of their smiles. The space between them shrinking by inches that felt measurable. This wasn't new. That realization landed clean and heavy. Not a mistake. Not a one-time lapse. This was something established. Something practiced. I checked my watch. 7:42 p.m. I noted it automatically. I stayed for exactly 12 minutes. Long enough to remove any doubt. Long enough to confirm what I was seeing wasn't a misinterpretation. At one point, Jason reached across the table and touched her wrist. She didn't pull away. She turned her hand slightly, almost unconsciously, like she was making it easier for him. That was the moment. Not the drinks. Not the laughter. That. I stood up quietly, left cash on the bar, and walked out without looking back. The air outside was colder than before. Sharper. It cut through the warmth that had been sitting in my chest. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Still at the office. Might be really late tonight. I read it once. Then again. No anger. Not yet. Just clarity. For the first time since I met her, I knew with absolute certainty that she was lying to me. And, more importantly, I knew I wasn't going to confront her. I got home before she did. That mattered. Control starts with position, and I wanted mine set before she walked through the door. The house felt exactly the same as it always had. The same soft light in the kitchen. The same faint hum from the refrigerator. The same chair slightly pulled out at the dining table from where I had left it that morning. Nothing had changed. Except now I knew. I placed my keys in the tray by the door, aligned them the way I always did, and took off my jacket. Routine. Keep everything normal. I checked the time. 8:16 p.m. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Not to distract myself. To begin. I created a new document. No title at first. Just a blank page and a blinking cursor. For a few seconds, I watched it. Then I typed. Timeline. Under it, I entered the first data point. Thursday, 7:42 p.m., Jazz Bar downtown. Emily with Jason Cole. Drinks. Physical contact initiated by him. Not resisted. I paused after writing it. Not because I doubted it, but because writing it made it real in a different way. Structured. Stored. No longer just something I saw. Something recorded. I added the second. 8:03 p.m. Message received. Still at the office. I leaned back slightly. The difference between chaos and control is documentation. If this was a problem, I was going to treat it like one. Emily came home at 9:11. I heard her before I saw her. The front door opening carefully. Shoes placed down instead of dropped. Small sounds, controlled sounds. I stayed at the table, laptop open but angled away so the screen wasn't visible from the hallway. She stepped into the kitchen a moment later. "Hey," she said, voice soft measured. "Hey." She walked over, leaned down, and kissed the side of my head. Her hand brushed my shoulder lightly, a gesture so practiced it almost felt automatic. "Sorry, today was a lot." I nodded once. I figured. No questions. No tension. Nothing for her to react to. She moved around the kitchen, opening cabinets, pouring herself a glass of water. I watched without watching, noting the details the way I would observe a system under test. Her phone stayed in her hand for a few seconds longer than necessary before she set it down, screen facing down, within reach. Consistent behavior. "Did you eat?" she asked. "Yeah." "Good." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Or maybe it did, and I just saw it differently now. That was the thing I was starting to understand. The facts hadn't changed. My interpretation had. Later that night, after she went upstairs, I stayed in the kitchen. I opened our shared calendar. Work entries. Client calls. Deadlines. I started cross-referencing. Dates she had come home late. Dates she had mentioned emergencies. Patterns in frequency. Gaps between them. Clusters. I created a second document. Inconsistencies. At first it was small. 2 entries that didn't align. Then 4. Then 7. The more I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't random. It was structured. Not perfectly, but enough. Around midnight, I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. What I felt was focus. Emily had made a decision to lie. Now I needed to understand the full scope of that decision. Not for closure. For precision. Upstairs, I could hear faint movement. A drawer opening. The soft creak of the bed. Normal sounds. I turned off the kitchen light and stood there for a second in the dark. The version of my life I trusted was still physically intact. Same house. Same routines. Same woman upstairs. But now I could see the fractures running through it. And once you see the pattern, you stop pretending it isn't there. The next step wasn't emotional. It was access. 3 days after the bar, Emily mentioned her tablet wasn't charging properly. She said it casually, like it didn't matter. "Probably just the cable," she said, dropping it on the kitchen counter before heading upstairs to shower. I glanced at it, then back at my laptop. Then back at the tablet. Opportunities don't announce themselves. They just sit there, waiting to see if you're paying attention. I picked it up. The charging port was loose, but that wasn't my focus. I plugged it in, adjusted the angle until it connected, and the screen lit up. No passcode. That was the first mistake she made. Not because she was careless, but because she didn't think she needed to be careful with me. I moved slowly. No sudden actions. No unnecessary clicks. Messages first. Nothing obvious. Work chats. Group threads. Surface level clean. Email. Same thing. Controlled. Professional. Then I saw the Notes app. There was a folder I didn't recognize. No name. Just a blank space where a title should have been. That alone was enough. I opened it. One note. Shared. My fingers didn't move for a second. Then I tapped it. The screen shifted, and everything narrowed. Dates. Locations. Short entries, structured almost like a log. Tuesday, Hotel Indigo, 6:30 p.m. Friday, his place, Spring Wine. Next week, Chicago, confirm flights. I felt my breathing slow down, not speed up. Each line was clean. Efficient. No wasted words. No emotion. Just planning. I scrolled. There were older entries too. First time, conference after party. Don't text during evenings. He gets suspicious. That line stayed on the screen longer than the others. He gets suspicious. Not my name. Not even Daniel. Just a variable in their system. I continued scrolling. Photos weren't attached. No messages inside the note. Just logistics. Like they had intentionally separated emotion from evidence. Smart. But not enough. At the bottom, there was a more recent entry. Use joint account. Easier to explain. That was the second mistake. I exited the note and opened our banking app on my phone. Shared account. Clean interface. Familiar numbers. I went back 90 days. At first glance, everything looked normal. Groceries. Utilities. Mortgage. Then I filtered. Hotels. 3 entries. Different locations. Same pattern. Mid-range amounts. Paid midweek. I cross-referenced the dates with the note. Perfect alignment. I checked flights next. 2 charges to an airline I knew Emily never used for work travel. Destination: Chicago. My jaw tightened slightly, but that was the only reaction. Not surprise. Confirmation. I set the tablet back exactly where she left it. Same angle. Same cable. Then I sat down at the table and opened my laptop. The document expanded quickly. Timeline grew from a page to 3. Inconsistencies merged into something cleaner. I created a third file. Financial misuse. Each charge logged. Date. Amount. Source. No assumptions. Just facts. Upstairs, I heard the shower turn off. Water running against tile. A cabinet opening. A drawer sliding shut. Normal sounds. I stared at the line again. Use joint account. Easier to explain. I almost appreciated the efficiency of it. No guilt. No hesitation. Just a decision. I closed the laptop slowly. The situation was no longer unclear. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated, sustained, funded, and now, fully documented. When Emily came back downstairs, hair damp, wearing one of my shirts like nothing had changed, she smiled at me. Did you fix it? I nodded once. Yeah. Should be fine now. Thanks, she said, stepping closer, brushing her fingers lightly against my arm. The contact felt the same, but it meant something completely different now. I looked at her for a second longer than usual. Not with anger, with assessment. She had already crossed the line. She just didn't realize yet that I had moved mine. She told me about Chicago 3 nights later. We were sitting at the dining table, plates half finished, the kind of quiet dinner we had shared hundreds of times before. Salmon, rice, a glass of white wine she barely touched. Everything looked normal. Emily rested her fork against the plate and said it casually, like it had just crossed her mind. I have a company retreat next week. Chicago. I nodded once slow. How long? 3 days. Maybe 4, she said, not meeting my eyes right away. It's kind of important. Leadership's going to be there. I watched her as she spoke. Her tone was practiced. Not nervous. Not rushed. Just controlled enough to pass. I had already seen the entry. Next week, Chicago, confirm flights. I folded my hands on the table. What dates? She listed them without hesitation. They matched the charges I had logged. Consistent. That almost made it worse. I leaned back slightly in my chair, studying her the way I would study a dataset that had finally revealed its pattern. Emily. She looked up. There was a pause. Small, but real. Yes. I held her gaze. I know about Jason. The words landed clean. No anger. No raised voice. Just information. For a second, nothing moved. Then her expression shifted, not into panic, but into calculation. Fast. Subtle. Like she was deciding which version of the truth to use. What are you talking about? She said. I didn't respond immediately. Silence is pressure. I let it sit between us. Then I spoke again. Jazz bar. Thursday. 7:42 p.m. Her fingers tightened slightly around the stem of her glass. I continued. Shared note. Hotel Indigo. Your place. Chicago. Now the change was visible. Not dramatic. Not explosive. But real. Her shoulders straightened.
Her jaw set.
You went through my things? She asked, voice colder now.
I almost smiled at that.
That's your question? She exhaled sharply and pushed her chair back a few inches, creating distance. It's not what you think, she said. I nodded once. Then explain it. Another pause. Longer this time. She looked away first. It's complicated, she said. No, I replied. It's structured. That made her look back at me. I leaned forward slightly, keeping my voice even. You lied about where you were. You met him repeatedly. You used our joint account to pay for it. And now you're planning a trip with him under the name of a retreat. Each point delivered clean. No emotion. Just sequence. She swallowed, but didn't deny it. Instead, she shifted again. This didn't just happen out of nowhere, Daniel, she said. You've been distant for months. There it was. Reframing. I let it pass. We're not discussing me, I said. We're discussing your decision. Her eyes hardened. So what? You're perfect, she snapped. You track everything, you analyze everything, but you don't see people.
You don't see me.
I didn't react, because that wasn't the point anymore. I sat back again, creating space on my side this time. You can go to Chicago, I said. The room went still. Her expression flickered, confusion, then something else. Or, I continued, you can stay. She stared at me, waiting. I met her eyes, steady. If you get on that plane, this marriage is over. No emphasis. No threat in my tone. Just a condition. For the first time that night, I saw uncertainty. Daniel, she started softer now. I didn't interrupt. She searched my face, like she was trying to find the version of me she was used to. The one who adjusted. The one who absorbed. He wasn't there anymore. You're overreacting, she said finally. It's just a trip. I shook my head once.
No.
It's a decision. Silence filled the space between us again. Heavy now. Measured. She looked down at the table, then back up. You wouldn't actually throw everything away over this, she said. It wasn't a question. It was an assumption. I held her gaze and said nothing, because I didn't need to convince her. I just needed her to choose. She booked the flight the next morning. I didn't ask. I didn't check right away. I just waited. Patterns reveal themselves when you stop interfering. At 9:12 a.m., while I was at my desk, my phone buzzed with a banking notification. Airline charge processed. I opened the app, already knowing what I would see. Chicago. Confirmed. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen for a few seconds longer than necessary. Not because I was surprised, but because that was the exact moment the situation stopped being theoretical. She had made her choice.
Clear. Documented.
Final. Nate walked past my desk, paused, then leaned against the divider. You look like you just solved something, he said. I did. He studied me for a second. Good solve. I closed the app and locked my phone. Accurate, I said. He frowned slightly, like he wanted to ask more but didn't. That was fine. I didn't need commentary. I needed execution. That afternoon, I stepped out during lunch and made 2 calls. The first was to the bank. I didn't rush it. I verified identity, answered security questions, moved through the process step by step. I'd like to restrict access to the joint account, I said calmly. Temporary freeze on outgoing transactions. The representative hesitated, then asked for clarification. Both account holders? Yes. There was a pause, typing on the other end. Understood. This will prevent withdrawals and transfers until both parties reauthorize. That's fine. It wasn't emotional. It was procedural. The second call was shorter. A lawyer, recommended through a colleague months ago for something unrelated. I had saved the number out of habit, not expectation. Divorce consultation, I said when the call connected. We scheduled a meeting for the next morning. Simple.
Clean.
By the time I got home that evening, Emily was already there. Her suitcase was open on the bed, half-packed. Clothes laid out in careful selections. Dresses I hadn't seen in months. Shoes she only wore when she wanted to be noticed. She glanced at me as I stepped into the room. Hey, she said, like nothing had shifted between us. Hey. I watched her for a moment. She folded a blouse, placed it into the suitcase, smoothed it out with her hands. No hesitation. You still going? I asked. She didn't look up. Yeah, she said. It's important. I nodded once. Okay. That made her pause. Just slightly. She looked at me then, searching again for something familiar. You're not going to start that conversation again? She asked. I shook my head.
No.
Because there was nothing left to discuss. She studied me for another second, then exhaled quietly, like she had expected resistance and was relieved not to find it. That was the mistake. She mistook silence for surrender. That night, we slept on opposite sides of the bed. Not deliberately, just naturally. A quiet distance that neither of us addressed. At 5:40 a.m., her alarm went off. She got up, showered, dressed. Moved through the routine with efficiency. I stayed in bed, eyes open, listening. The sound of the suitcase, wheels rolling across the floor. The zipper closing. Footsteps in the hallway. She paused at the bedroom door. Daniel? I turned my head slightly. Yeah, I'll text you when I land. I looked at her. For a moment, I saw the version of her I had trusted. The one from mornings in the kitchen. The one who leaned against the counter waiting for coffee. Then it was gone. You don't need to, I said. She frowned just a little. Okay. Then she left. The front door closed softly. I waited 10 seconds. Then I got out of bed. No hesitation. I walked to the office, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. The documents were already there.
Timeline.
Financial records.
Notes.
Everything organized. Everything ready. At 6:12 a.m., I sent the first email to my lawyer. Attachments included. At 6:18, I logged into the home system and changed the access codes. At 6:25, I transferred my direct deposit to a new account. Each action completed without pause. Outside, the sky was just starting to lighten. That dull gray blue that comes before the sun decides whether it's worth showing up. By the time her flight took off, my part was already in motion. She thought she had time. She thought I would wait. She thought I would adjust like I always had. But this time, I had already moved on to the outcome. She came back 2 days early. I knew before she even texted. At 11:03 a.m., my phone lit up with a notification from the airline app. Flight change. Same route. Earlier return. Not planned. Something had shifted on her end. I didn't react. I just noted the time and continued working. By then, everything on my side was already finalized. The house was quieter than usual that morning. Not empty, just reduced. I had spent the last 48 hours removing only what was mine.
Clothes.
Documents. Equipment. Small things she wouldn't notice immediately, and a few things she absolutely would. The office was cleared. The closet on my side was half empty. The drawer in the kitchen where I kept receipts and warranties gone. Controlled absence. At 2:17 p.m., the front door opened. I wasn't there. That part was intentional. Instead, I was sitting in a conference room at work, laptop open, reviewing numbers that didn't require my full attention. My phone was face up on the table. I wanted to see how long it would take. 6 seconds. That's how long it took for her to call. I let it ring. Then again. Then a message. Daniel, what is going on? I read it once, then locked the screen. No immediate response. Pressure builds in silence. 3 minutes later, another message. Why isn't my code working? I pictured it without needing to be there. Her standing at the keypad, typing in the same code she had used for years. The small pause after it failed. The second attempt. Slightly faster. Slightly less certain. Then the realization. Restricted access. At 2:26, she called again. I answered this time. Daniel? Her voice was tight. Not panicked yet, but close. I'm in a meeting, I said calmly. What did you do? She asked. No greeting. No softness. I changed the access codes. A pause. Why? I leaned back in my chair, glancing at the glass wall in front of me. My reflection looked the same. That was something I noticed. Because you don't live there right now. What are you talking about? Her voice rose slightly. I just got back. I'm literally standing outside. I know. Silence. Then sharper. Open the door.
No.
That landed harder than anything else I had said so far. Daniel. There's an envelope inside, I continued, cutting cleanly across her words. On the entry table. She stopped. I could hear her breathing through the phone now. Controlled, but uneven. What envelope? Instructions, I said. And documents. Another pause. Longer. You're joking, she said, but there was no confidence behind it. I'm not. The line went quiet for a few seconds. I imagined her stepping back from the door, looking through the glass panel, trying to see inside, trying to piece it together faster than it was unfolding. You can't just lock me out of my own house, she said finally. I can restrict access to my property, I replied. The legal details are in the envelope. Her breath caught slightly at that. Legal. That was the word that changed everything. Are you seriously doing this? She asked. I didn't answer immediately, because this wasn't about convincing her anymore. It was about letting reality settle in. You made your decision when you got on that plane, I said. That's not, she started, but stopped herself. Different approach. You're overreacting, she said, softer now. We can talk about this.
We're talking, I said.
Just not in person. Another silence. Then quieter. Daniel. For a second, there was something familiar in her voice. Not the version from the last few weeks. The older one. The one that used to stand in the kitchen in my sweatshirt, waiting for coffee. I ignored it. If you have questions, I said, contact the lawyer listed in the documents. You got a lawyer? The disbelief was real now. Yes. And you didn't even. She stopped again, like the sentence didn't know how to finish itself. I looked at the time. 2:31 p.m. 5 minutes. That's all it had taken for her to go from confusion to understanding. I have another meeting, I said. Daniel, don't hang up. I ended the call.
Clean.
No hesitation. I placed the phone back on the table and closed my laptop slowly. Around me, the office continued like nothing had happened. People talking. Keyboards clicking. Someone laughing in the distance. Normal. I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and walked out of the room. Somewhere across the city, Emily was standing outside a house that still looked like her life. But for the first time, she couldn't get in. I didn't hear from her for almost 12 hours. That was unusual. Emily wasn't the type to sit in uncertainty. She filled space. She pushed. She found angles. Silence meant one of two things. Either she was planning, or something had already started breaking. At 8:14 p.m., my phone lit up again. Not a call. A message. We need to talk. This is getting out of control. I read it, then set the phone down without responding. Because from my perspective, everything was exactly under control. The next morning, the situation expanded. Not from her. From somewhere else. I was halfway through reviewing a report when Nate walked over, slower than usual. No jokes this time. No casual posture. You seen this? He asked, holding out his phone. I glanced at the screen. An internal company thread. Not mine, Emily's firm. Someone had forwarded it. Subject line. Urgent HR notice. I took the phone. A few sentences in, the structure became clear. Internal investigation. Financial irregularities. Unauthorized expense allocations tied to client accounts. My eyes moved faster. Then I saw the name. Emily Brooks. Not alone. Jason Cole. I handed the phone back without comment. Nate watched me carefully. That doesn't look small. No, I said. It doesn't. I didn't ask how bad it was. I already had enough context. Joint account usage. Hotel charges.
Flights.
If she had been careless with personal money, she had likely been careless with company money too. Or worse, guided into it. That thought stayed for a second longer. Not sympathy. Just pattern recognition. At 10:02 a.m., she called again. I answered. This time, there was no control in her voice. Daniel, she started, then stopped, like she didn't know which part to say first. They're investigating me. I didn't respond immediately. They're saying I approved expenses I wasn't supposed to, she continued, faster now. Trips, client budgets, things Jason told me to handle. I didn't, this isn't. Her words started overlapping. For the first time, she sounded disorganized. What exactly are they saying? I asked. They think I knew, she said. That I signed off on everything. She cut herself off. Jason's not answering. He's not picking up. I don't know what he told them. I leaned back in my chair. There it was. The variable she didn't account for. You used shared funds, I said. That's not the same thing, she snapped, then immediately softened. Daniel, please, you understand how this works. Things get approved all the time.
He said it was fine.
He said. I repeated. Silence. Breathing on the other end. Unsteady. They suspended me, she said, finally quieter. Pending review. I looked at the window beside my desk.
Gray sky.
Light rain starting again. Predictable. What do you want from me? I asked. Another pause. Longer. Then, I need help. The words came out slower than everything else she had said. Careful. Measured. Like she knew exactly what she was asking. I let the silence stretch. Because this moment mattered. Not emotionally. Structurally. You made a series of decisions, I said. Each one with a clear outcome. That's not fair, she said quickly. You think I wanted this? You think I knew he was? I cut in. You chose to trust the wrong system. That stopped her.
Completely.
No immediate response. No correction. Just silence. I didn't think it would go this far, she said after a few seconds. That was the most honest thing she had said. And it changed nothing. Across the city, her situation was collapsing from multiple directions. Personal, financial, professional, all connected, all traceable. Jason disappearing wasn't surprising. People like him don't stay for consequences. They create them, then step out before impact, which left her exactly where the data said she would be. Exposed.
Documented.
Alone. Daniel, she said again, quieter now. I closed my laptop. There's nothing I can do for you, I replied. Not harsh. Not cold. Just accurate. The line stayed open for a second longer. Then she hung up. I placed the phone face down on the desk. For a moment, I sat there, listening to the low hum of the office around me. Everything was still moving, just not in her favor anymore. And for the first time since this started, the outcome wasn't just inevitable. It was already happening. The divorce was finalized in 43 days. No drawn-out arguments. No dramatic hearings. Just documentation, signatures, and the quiet efficiency of a process designed to end things cleanly when both sides stopped pretending. Emily contested at first. Not aggressively. Not strategically. Emotionally. There were emails. Long ones. Then shorter ones. Then just fragments. We can fix this. You're throwing everything away. I made a mistake. I read all of them. I didn't respond to any. Because by that point, there was nothing left to fix, only things to finish. Her situation at work didn't recover. From what I understood, the investigation expanded quickly. Expense reports traced back further than she expected. Approvals tied to her name. Patterns she hadn't seen because she wasn't looking for them. Jason never came back. No statement. No defense. Just absence. The company needed resolution. She was the only one available to carry it. Termination followed. Not immediately, but inevitably. I didn't feel satisfaction when I heard. Just confirmation. Actions produce outcomes. That's all this ever was. I moved out before the final papers were signed. Not out of urgency, but preference. The house by the water didn't feel like mine anymore. Not because of what happened inside it, but because of what I had learned there. I chose something smaller. A modern apartment overlooking a quieter part of the city. Clean lines. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimal furniture. No history attached to any of it. The first night there, I stood by the glass, looking out over the lights reflecting off wet streets. No noise. No interruption. Just space. I noticed something then. Not relief. Not anger. Absence. And for the first time, it didn't feel like something was missing. It felt like something unnecessary had been removed. Work changed too. 3 weeks after everything settled, I accepted an offer from a growing tech firm.
Smaller team.
Faster pace. Less routine, but more control over outcomes. It required adjustment. I adapted. Patterns still applied. They just moved faster. Months passed. Not in a blur. Not in slow motion. Just forward. One evening after a long day, I stopped at a small bookstore near the office. Not planned. Just a decision made in motion. Inside, it was quiet. Warm light. The faint smell of paper and coffee. I was scanning a shelf when someone beside me reached for the same book. We both paused.
Sorry, she said.
It's fine. We both let go at the same time. A small moment. Insignificant on its own. But something about it didn't feel forced. We ended up talking for a few minutes. Then longer. Nothing dramatic. No immediate weight behind it. Just conversation. Uncomplicated. When I left the store that night, I realized something. Not about her. About myself. The mistake I made wasn't trusting Emily. It was assuming trust didn't require verification. It was believing stability meant permanence. It doesn't. It means structure. And structure only holds if both sides respect it. I still believe in patterns. In logic. In systems that make sense.
But now,
I also account for variables I used to ignore. I got into my car, started the engine, and pulled out into the street. The city moved the same way it always had.
lights.
Motion. Direction. The difference was, this time, I wasn't following something I thought was stable. I was choosing where to go next.